Welcome back to the Deep Dive, the show where we take a stack of sources, be it dense research, meeting notes, or in today's case, a truly rich, organic conversation, and we just extract the essential knowledge you need to be instantly well-informed. We're here to give you the shortcut to those aha moments, moving beyond the surface summaries and really into structural insight.
That's absolutely right. We aren't just here to listen to the story. Not at all. We are here to dissect how the story was told.
Exactly.
We look at the underlying structure, the cognitive blueprint, and the practical linguistic takeaways that are sort of lurking beneath the surface of everyday information.
And today, our source material is, well, it's deceptively simple. It's a detailed, friendly chat between two people, Mike and Sarah, recounting what happened yesterday.
Right.
But our mission, it goes far deeper than just gossip. We are dissecting these rich narratives to understand the structural, emotional, and chronological blueprints they used. And we're zeroing in on the single most crucial linguistic tool that powered their entire recollection, the simple past tense. Okay, let's unpack this.
And this matters profoundly to you, the listener, because effective communication is, at its core, effective storytelling. When you master talking about the past, your experiences, your history, your daily events, you gain this immediate ability to share your life, to connect deeply with others, and to construct stories that are both memorable and, crucially, easy for the listener to follow. This is really an analysis of effective narrative construction.
Yeah.
Just disguised as a dive into two people's day.
And we have two highly detailed accounts of a single day filled with specific actions, precise times, and some really genuine emotional responses. Mike's day was a chronicle of unexpected physical activity and deep personal connection, structured by measurable productivity.
A very grounded day.
Very. And then Sarah's was this whirlwind of wellness that was just completely upended by shock and celebration. So let's jump straight into the details of Mike's 24 hours and see what narrative techniques he employed. So, Mike started his day focused on routine, but was very quickly diverted, leading to a surprisingly fulfilling day. What's compelling here, I think, is how Mike's narrative balances the things he planned to do versus the unexpected interactions that truly defined his morning. It shows us how the simple past tense is used not just to, list actions, but to manage expectation versus reality.
And it starts right away. Mike's routine begins at 7 a.m., a normal wake-up time for him. His intention was set. The gym.
Right.
But before he could even commit to that first action, around 7:30 a.m., his neighbor called. This immediate diversion is textually so important because it replaces a self-motivated, planned physical task with a relational one.
And the relational task was not a simple chat. I mean, this was serious work. Mike had to help move a massive, heavy new sofa up the stairs to the neighbor's apartment.
Yes, the description is key. Massive and heavy.
It wasn't a quick lift. The duration and the sheer difficulty of the struggle meant it took almost an hour. And I would argue, that Mike's simple choice of the simple past here, I helped the neighbor, it actually collapses that whole painful hour into one efficient, positive memory. Isn't he prioritizing the outcome over the effort?
That's a fantastic observation. It really highlights the concept of narrative economy.
Narrative economy, I like that.
Yes. If Mike had switched to the past continuous, I was struggling and straining for an hour while we dragged that sofa, the memory would feel tedious and heavy to the listener.
Right, you feel the weight of it.
Exactly. By choosing the simple past, I helped. He focuses the listener's attention solely on the completion of the deed. The narrative prioritizes connection and immediate fulfillment over the physical discomfort, making his story quick and positive.
And that immediate reward really reinforces that positive outcome. The neighbor's sheer gratitude paid dividends immediately, leading to an impromptu breakfast. Mike was treated to amazing pancakes with maple syrup and fresh berries.
And this demonstrates a classic narrative structure of cost and reward. Mike paid the cost of connection, his time and his energy, and he received the immediate reward of reciprocity and, delicious food. This act of hospitality sets an instantly positive and fulfilling tone. It reinforces that the simple past tense is the vehicle for documenting these reciprocal social contracts. I did A and I received B. It's a very clear cause and effect.
Furthermore, the connection was solidified during the meal. They spent 45 minutes of catching up over breakfast, and Mike learned that his neighbor recently started working from home, had a new job. This narrative element shows that the past tense is the primary tool for documenting relationship building and gathering necessary context.
Exactly. Mike now possesses valuable context about his neighbor's current life, the new work-from-home schedule. This changes how they will likely interact in the future. The physical exertion led directly to social intimacy. It's a powerful illustration of how the simple past tense, when used relationally, acts as a historical record for personal growth and community bonding.
So after that really eventful and unexpected start, Mike pivoted back to control. He performed a therapeutic cleanse of his apartment. He vacuumed all rooms, did the laundry, and organized his closet.
This is a textbook example of a return to equilibrium after a social disruption. The structure of his day pivots back to scheduled personal productivity.
Yeah, he's taking back his schedule.
He is. And this activity took around 2 hours, which indicates a thorough job. Mike specifically described the process as satisfying and therapeutic, noting he got into the zone with music.
Okay, we have to pause on the music detail, because the source material specifies he was listening to that new album by the British band. And more specifically, Mike was so immersed that he played the third track, which he noted had meaningful lyrics and a catchy melody, at least 5 times.
I have to ask, isn't focusing on the specific track and band just narrative clutter? I mean, how does that actually serve the overall structural narrative?
That's the perfect question, and the answer is no, it's anything but clutter. Linguists refer to this as a high salience marker.
High salience marker.
And it's what makes the story stick. Mike could have just said, I cleaned while listening to music. That's factual, but it's flat.
Right, it's boring. It's boring. But adding the specific detail, the British band, the third track, played 5 times, creates a vivid sensory image for the listener. It anchors the feeling of being in the zone to a precise auditory memory. These high salience markers make the mundane tasks relatable and memorable, avoiding the trap of simple reporting.
So the detail acts as an emotional timestamp. It signals to the listener that those 2 hours weren't drudgery, but a moment of intense, positive immersion amplified by the music. Mike cleaned, simple past, and the accompanying music provided the emotional context.
Precisely. The actions are the bones of the story, but these details are the flesh.
Okay, so by around noon, the physical reality of the morning, the heavy lifting, and the 2 hours of cleaning dictated his next set of actions.
Yes, the body takes over. Mike realized he hadn't shopped for almost a week, and his fridge was, practically empty.
The narrative here uses a very clear cause and effect structure. Empty fridge, which is the cause, a past state, led to shopping. The effect, a new action. And the decision of where he went is equally rich, the big supermarket downtown near the park. Crucially, he included the temporal anchor, noting the good deals on Wednesdays and the fresh produce.
And that is what we call contextual anchoring. It's not just that he shopped, it's that he shopped smart.
Okay.
By including the day of the week and the location, Mike grounds his actions in his everyday reality and local knowledge, which adds depth and credibility to his entire account. The simple past here confirms he used that knowledge effectively.
And then came the haul, as we're calling it. He bought vegetables, fruits, chicken, pasta, bread, milk, eggs, and cheese. A complete restock.
The essentials.
The essentials. And the essential detail, the personal treat, the irresistible on-sale temptation of chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream, his favorite.
This is our second powerful application of the high salience marker. No one needs to know the flavor of the ice cream to understand the story.
Of course not.
But by including it, Mike gives the listener a piece of his personality and a shared universal moment of indulgence. It's the moment of human frailty, the disciplined shopper yielding to his favorite weakness. And that small, specific detail is what we retain long after we forget the vegetables.
So true. I remember the ice cream, not the chicken.
Exactly.
Okay, so the entire shopping trip culminated in his dinner preparation. Cooking spaghetti carbonara, explicitly noted as one of his favorite dishes to make, using the fresh ingredients he just bought.
And this immediately moves the narrative beyond functional activity and into profound emotional connection.
Yes.
Mike revealed that the recipe was learned from his grandmother years ago. She also taught him lasagna, apple pie, and her famous chocolate cake. The act of cooking became a vehicle for memory and legacy.
This is where the depth of the simple past tense truly reveals itself. Mike noted that his grandmother passed away 3 years ago, yet cooking her recipes evokes her presence. The verbs used, she taught me, she passed away, I missed cooking with her. These are not random, they are verbs of deep, enduring significance.
And when we teach the simple past, we so often focus on just the action. I walked, I ate. But here, the past tense defines continuity.
Continuity. How so?
The action in the present, I cooked, bridges the gap between now and the enduring impact of a loved one's life. Furthermore, look at the irregular verbs here. Taught from teach, made from make. These irregular forms often carry the greatest narrative weight, reserving their unique structure for the most important actions, like imparting knowledge or creating a legacy.
That's fascinating. The grammar itself is signaling importance.
It is.
So, after dinner, Mike settled in for his evening routine, a distinct contrast to his social morning. He watched a new, excellent, suspenseful thriller movie that came out last month, and the movie was substantial, lasting 2 hours and 15 minutes.
That precise duration is another one of those subtle yet effective narrative angles. It signals the dedicated time he set aside for pure focus.
Yeah, this wasn't just channel surfing.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And he provided another fascinating psychological detail. He prefers watching thrillers alone to focus, and he ate popcorn the entire time. His day structure moves from high relational effort in the morning to high solitary focus in the evening.
And following the movie, he engaged in his pre-bed intellectual pursuit, reading a fascinating biography about Marie Curie. He was focusing on her discoveries, her challenges as a woman in science, and her personal life.
The quantifiable details persist even here. He read for 30 minutes and has about 50 pages left. These markers ground the story in measurable reality. He finished the day tired but fulfilled. Mike's entire day was a masterclass in using the simple past to build a chronicle, a series of specific, completed measurable events that lead to a defined sense of satisfaction.
That story gave us such a clear, chronologically measured journey. It was defined by unexpected social interaction and measured personal productivity, a really complete day.
Very complete.
So, now let's transition and look at Sarah's yesterday. Where Mike's day was about conquering expectation, Sarah's was completely upended by an emotional shockwave. Let's see how her narrative reflects that shift in pacing and emotional focus. Sarah's narrative contrasts immediately. It begins with intense self-care and discipline, setting a pattern that is then immediately and happily shattered by news that forces an intense emotional reaction. It demonstrates how the simple past can document emotional highs just as effectively as physical actions.
Yes, and her start is just as disciplined as Mike's, but in a different way. Sarah also woke up at 7 a.m., but her first action was immediate, quantified physical activity, a morning jog in the park.
Right. No hesitation.
No. And she provided impressive metrics that define her as highly disciplined.
And these metrics are crucial for establishing her routine. She ran 5 kilometers in 35 minutes. She added sensory details. The weather was cool and crisp with beautiful sunrise colors.
Lovely.
And she grounded this as routine. She jogs at least 4 times a week for energy. Her actions are sharp, efficient, and clearly defined by completed, simple past actions. She ran, she noted.
This discipline continued right to breakfast. A healthy smoothie bowl with bananas, strawberries, blueberries, yogurt, granola, paired with green tea with honey. The sequential, measured actions just underscore her proactive approach. Her narrative starts with certainty and control.
And then came the shift. This is the narrative inflection point. Sarah received a phone call from her sister, who lives in London.
A long-distance call.
Yes, and she noted that they don't talk often, which immediately signals the importance and unexpected nature of the call.
And the big news immediately rendered her plan structure irrelevant. Our sister got engaged last week. The narrative just accelerates into high emotional content.
And the detail she chose to share is pure high salience narrative. The fiancé proposed at the top of the Eiffel Tower at sunset in Paris. Sarah used the perfect descriptor, like something from a movie. This anchors the emotional narrative in a universal romantic fantasy. The listener doesn't just know the sister got engaged, they see the Eiffel Tower at sunset.
And this high salience marker is so effective that it caused an immediate, intense emotional response in Sarah. Her sister asked her to be her maid of honor, which caused Sarah to cry with joy. This is the past tense documenting pure emotional reaction. And they immediately discussed plans. Medium size, about 100 guests. Next summer, maybe June or July, an outdoor ceremony in a beautiful garden. The details just start flowing.
The emotional energy was contagious. Sarah immediately called her parents. Her mother screamed with happiness.
I can imagine.
Linguistically, this is fascinating. The 2 highly emotional calls collectively took over an hour and a half, yet Sarah reported that time flew by.
Yes.
Mike's day was measured in work units, an hour on the sofa, 2 hours cleaning, but Sarah's time unit was compressed by intense emotion.
That's the psychological impact of narrative time versus clock time. The simple past tense reports that the action was completed, the call took an hour and a half, but the emotional report, time flew by, shows that the high salience of the news distorted her perception.
So grammar reports the facts, but the narration conveys the feeling.
Exactly. The grammar reports the duration, but the narration conveys the speed of joy.
So once that emotional rush subsided a bit, Sarah created stability with a quick, functional lunch, a simple sandwich. This action prepares her for the afternoon social schedule.
She then transitioned into her planned social engagement, meeting her friend Jessica at a downtown cafe at precisely 2 o'clock. They ordered coffee and cake and dived into travel stories.
And the details of the catch-up centered on Jessica's recent 2-week trip to Japan, visiting Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka.
Right.
Sarah's past tense narration here, Jessica shared about her trip, she showed hundreds of photos, demonstrates how the simple past is used to seamlessly integrate a secondary narrative, Jessica's past, into the primary narrative of Sarah's day.
And the specifics Sarah chose to recall are fascinating. She focused on cultural exploration, temples, gardens, and food. The absolute sensory standout, which she explicitly remembered, was Jessica stating that the ramen in Tokyo was the best she ever tasted.
Another one of those high salience markers.
A perfect one. This use of sensory detail acts as an anchor for the vicarious experience. They stayed at the cafe for a solid 2 hours.
Following the cafe, they walked to a local landmark, the cozy, independent bookstore on Main Street that has a crucial, charming detail: a resident cat.
You have to mention the cat.
You have to mention the cat. The inclusion of the cat is another one of those markers. It grounds the location in a warm, memorable image.
And the purchases they made, the past action of buying, directly foreshadows the evening. Sarah bought a mystery novel, an owner recommendation, and a Mediterranean cookbook. Jessica bought a poetry collection.
So the simple past tense, I bought, here functions as the catalyst for future action and self-improvement.
That's a great way to put it.
And it highlights a crucial structural point. Mike's purchases fed his next action, the carbonara. Sarah's purchases fed her next learning experience, trying a new recipe. Both use the simple past to structure resource acquisition for their evening activities.
And Sarah demonstrated immediate application. Unlike Mike, who stored most of his groceries, Sarah tried a recipe from the new cookbook that very evening.
Right away.
She made a Greek salad with feta cheese, olives, cucumbers, tomatoes, and homemade lemon dressing. The immediate action validates the earlier purchase.
Her dinner was paired with entertainment. She ate while watching an episode of that popular, hilarious comedy series, noting that each episode is only 25 minutes long.
A very different choice from Mike's movie.
Totally. Compare this to Mike's 2-hour and 15-minute solitary thriller. Sarah's entertainment choice reflects a need for quick, shared, light relief after a highly emotional day.
But the wedding excitement hadn't subsided. She called her sister again for 20 minutes because she forgot to ask questions about the wedding dress earlier.
Oh, of course.
This demonstrates the fragmented, persistent nature of intense excitement. The simple past, I forgot, explains the necessity of the repeated action. It's a justification.
Her final pre-bed activities were dedicated self-care. She practiced yoga for 30 minutes, noting she practices at least 3 times a week for stress and flexibility. And then she took a bath with lavender essential oils.
Winding down after all that excitement.
Completely. And her reading choice was a historical fiction novel set in Victorian England about a woman who becomes a detective when her husband disappears mysteriously.
So both Mike and Sarah ended their days with reading, but their narratives were fundamentally different. Mike's was a chronicle of effort and earned reward. Sarah's was a celebration of unexpected, joyful connection managed through self-care.
And the simple past tense was the engine that effectively communicated both of those very different, very rich experiences.
If we connect Mike's unexpected sofa lift, his grandmother's carbonara, Sarah's Eiffel Tower surprise, and the best ramen ever tasted, the entire depth of the conversation hinged on correctly employing the simple past tense. This ability to reconstruct a specific sequence of completed actions is just fundamental to achieving narrative fluency.
Let's move past the elementary rules now. We can assume our listener understands the basic mechanics. Our goal here is to dissect the function and the impact of the simple past on narrative flow and cognitive load.
Right.
The depth of their stories, the exact times, the specific emotions, it all would have just collapsed if the tense was murky or misused.
Well, we know the simple past tense is the essential tool for describing completed actions that happened at a specific time. But structurally, its most important function is narrative speed.
Narrative speed, okay.
Because the action is finalized, the listener can quickly process it and move on to the next action without cognitive resistance.
It's like, think of the simple past as the driving lane on a highway. It moves the story forward efficiently. I woke up, I went to the store, I bought the items. If Mike had been forced to use overly complex structures, his 2-hour cleaning story would have taken 5 minutes to tell and felt so tedious. The simple past allows for a high density of actions in a short amount of time.
And this leads us to the critical concept of aspect. Why simple past, I helped the neighbor, and not past continuous, I was helping the neighbor.
Right. What's the difference in impact?
The continuous aspect emphasizes the duration or the process, often interrupting the main action or suggesting the action was incomplete. Mike used the simple past because he wanted to emphasize the definitive completion and the positive result, the pancakes. Mastering the choice between simple and continuous past is essential for controlling narrative emphasis.
Okay, so let's talk about the verbs themselves, the regular ones first.
While the rule is simple, add ed, the function is profound. Regular verbs provide the bulk of the necessary actions in a daily narrative, creating efficiency. The vast majority of verbs follow this pattern, which frees up the listener's cognitive energy to focus on the unique, high-weight actions.
The regular verbs are like the connective tissue of the day. In Mike's story, he planned, he talked, he vacuumed, he organized, he watched.
Yeah.
In Sarah's, she jogged, she practiced, she called repeatedly, and she walked to the bookstore.
Notice how the ed ending consistently stamps the action as complete. If you hear a regular verb, your brain can instantly categorize it and move on. The linguistic uniformity here is key to managing the listener's cognitive load, so they don't get stuck processing the sum of the verb, but the content of the action.
However, let's explore the nuance there. Mike cleaned and Sarah practiced. If Mike had said he scrubbed or Sarah had said she strained, the ed rule still applies, but the meaning shifts dramatically.
Oh, completely.
So the simple past allows for incredible precision, even within the regular structure, provided the speaker chooses the right verb to reflect the intensity of the past action.
A great point. The verb choice is still paramount.
Now we arrive at the irregular verbs. I called them the high-value ingredients earlier, and that's because they refuse to conform. They change completely, demanding memorization. But maybe we shouldn't view these as a challenge, but as narrative pressure points.
Absolutely. That's the perfect term for them. The irregular verbs carry disproportionate narrative weight. If we look at the source material, the biggest, most crucial actions of Mike and Sarah's day relied on these irregular forms.
They really did.
They are the verbs of transformation, acquisition, and fundamental movement.
So let's break down the most essential examples from their stories. Go became went, Mike went shopping. Buy became bought, Sarah bought 2 books.
Right.
Eat became Mike ate popcorn. Receive, well, you could argue it's regular, but the emotional weight feels irregular.
Nah.
Sarah received the call. And make became made, Mike made carbonara.
Think about the moment Sarah got the news. She received the call, the sister got engaged, her mother screamed, and Sarah felt joy. These verbs define the key actions that changed the trajectory of the day.
They're all turning points.
They are. The linguistic prominence of the irregular form, the way it stands out from the sieve-ed verbs, makes it subconsciously clearer to the listener that this action is more critical than the 100 other regular actions surrounding it.
So the linguistic challenge of memorizing irregular verbs is directly correlated with their narrative necessity. If you master the irregular verbs, you master telling the most dramatic and important parts of your story.
You really can't tell a compelling story of acquisition, change, or creation without them.
But grammar alone, even mastering the irregular forms, cannot create a flow. Mike and Sarah made their complex days so easy to follow because they overlaid their grammar with a clear conversational framework.
Yes, the structure around the grammar is vital.
And starting the conversation is the fundamental access point. The key phrases used to initiate the discussion, how was your day yesterday? Or what did you do? They're simple, but they serve as the narrative invitation. They signal to both parties that the next segment will require the simple past tense.
And the response, what we call responding and setting the tone, is equally vital. Responses like, yesterday was interesting, or I had a busy day, manage the listener's expectation. They signal the upcoming emotional content or complexity, preparing the listener for a higher density of information, like Sarah's response indicating an eventful day.
The actual organization of the story relies so heavily on time expressions. If Mike had simply listed his actions without time markers, the story would have been a confusing jumble.
A total mess.
They anchored their narratives chronologically using clear markers at 7 a.m., around noon, in the afternoon, and before bed.
And these temporal anchors mitigate cognitive overload. They allow the listener to mentally file the completed actions into specific, manageable chunks of the day. The simple past confirms the action is done, and the time marker confirms when the filing should occur.
And finally, the glue. Connecting ideas with transitional words. This is essential for preventing the narrative from becoming a simple, choppy list. Without them, the story is just, I lifted the sofa, I ate pancakes, I vacuumed. It sounds robotic.
It does. Transitional words like after, before, then, next, later, and finally ensure a smooth flow. Mike used, after breakfast I went back home, and after dinner I watched a movie.
And Sarah used them too.
Yes.
Sure.
After my jog I came home, and after those phone calls I realized it was already noon. These words explicitly guide the listener from one completed action to the next, maintaining chronological certainty. They're the navigational beacons of the past tense.
So, what does this high-level, detailed analysis of two friends yesterdays mean for you, the learner? We've seen the simple past tense not as a rule, but as a dynamic engine for sharing identity, connection, and emotional history. The link between their narrative structure and your learning journey is, I think, critical for accelerating fluency.
The first major takeaway, driven home by Mike's ice cream and Sarah's Eiffel Tower, is the immense value of detail. We emphasize the concept of the high salience marker. If you strip the narrative down to functional summaries, they cleaned, shopped, cooked, you gain no depth.
And you lose all the interest. Specificity creates imagery and emotional retention. You don't just remember that Mike cleaned, you remember the feeling of focused productivity anchored by the third track of the British band.
Right.
You don't just know Sarah's sister got engaged, you visualize the Eiffel Tower at sunset. The detail is the hook that allows the simple past verbs surrounding it to be retained easily in your memory. Focus on the details that make the memory vivid, and the grammar will follow.
Secondly, we saw profoundly the power of connection. The simple past tense is the vehicle for relational engagement. Mike connected to his present community, the neighbor and the sofa, and his past lineage, his grandmother and the carbonara.
Right. The past tense transforms an action, cooking, into a tribute, a legacy.
It does. And Sarah used the past tense to solidify her future connections, the maid of honor planning, and to share vicarious experiences like Jessica's Japan trip and the best ramen ever. If you want to connect with someone, you have to offer them shared emotional history. The simple past tense is the linguistic mechanism for that shared history. It enables empathetic conversation.
So this deep analysis of the source material highlights the explicit advice given for mastery. We must move beyond passive learning.
Yes. The first piece of advice is that immersion is key. You need to listen, watch, read, and actively try to think in English as much as possible. This constant exposure is what makes the irregular verbs and transitional phrases feel intuitive rather than memorized. It's a process of neurological rewiring.
If you are hearing high salience markers and contextually anchored stories constantly, your brain starts building the scaffolding for those narrative structures automatically. You no longer translate. You simply speak using the framework you've internalized.
And the crucial role of speaking practice cannot be ignored. The explicit advice provided was direct. Practice speaking out loud, even when alone.
Even when you feel silly doing it.
Especially then. Narrating your actions, describing your day using the simple past tense as your engine, helps transform passive knowledge into active, usable communication skill. This is how Mike and Sarah effortlessly recounted their stories. They build automaticity through internal rehearsal.
And I think we really need to emphasize that it's okay to make mistakes. The focus should be on communication and clarity, not perfection.
Absolutely.
Mike and Sarah's narratives were successful because they used the framework effectively. Their objective wasn't flawless grammar, it was conveying the rich texture of their day. Your goal as a learner should be the same.
The language is a marathon, not a sprint. And every successfully completed sentence in the simple past is a mile marker toward fluency.
That's a great way to think about it.
You've internalized dozens of past tense forms just by tracing the chronology of the sofa, the carbonara, the Eiffel Tower, and the trip to Japan. You saw the grammar actively serving the story, which is the fastest way to embed new linguistic structures.
We've reached the end of this deep dive. We moved beyond a simple conversation recap and explored two incredibly detailed narratives. We learned how the simple past tense acts as the primary engine for storytelling, prioritizing narrative economy and emotional impact over, technical duration. We identified key structural tools, time expressions, transitionals, and those high salience markers needed to make those stories flow chronologically and emotionally.
And remember that detailed, specific conversation, anchored in the simple past tense, is the fastest path to both cultural and linguistic fluency. Every minute detail, the specific flavor of ice cream, The resident cat in the bookstore, the grandmother's lasagna recipe, provides a rich context that aids memory retention and linguistic application.
We hope this analysis gives you a new appreciation for the simple, powerful utility of the simple past tense. It is the tense of history, legacy, and connection. Thank you for diving deep with us and for pursuing knowledge quickly and thoroughly.
We truly appreciate your commitment to learning.
And finally, let's leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. The source notes that Mike enjoyed reading a biography about Marie Curie and her challenges as a woman in science during her era.
Right.
If the past tense is the primary tool we use to document history, both personal and global, what historical narrative from your own country, told using the simple past tense, are you most inspired to research and share with someone this week? Find the story, use the tense, and share the past. Until next time, keep exploring.